So we have gone past the times when you could only get a bike by going on the street, etc. We have seen the evolution of taxi hailing applications, and now bike hailing apps are now a major thing. However, in a state like Lagos, where bikes are in demand, when you look at the traffic situation and how people really need to move about, it has become a major part of our culture, sort of. And so it is important that we talk about this, because a few weeks ago on the show, we talked about how Gokada was looking at exploring other aspects of transportation, and Uber was also looking in the direction of Okada hailing apps. That's the best way to put it. But there's some gray areas that have not been explored, and we'll be doing that today on TechCity Disqus. My name is BellaRose.
I'm Shalewa Williams.
I'm Dolapo Inuadi.
Welcome. All right, welcome back, guys. So before we go into the business of the day and get into the meat of the matter, do you have any interesting Okada experiences? Ever had any? What's the longest Okada trip you have taken?
Probably like 15 minutes.
Huh?
Yeah.
How about you?
About the same.
I have entered Okada from mainland to island before.
What?
Yep, from
feel like it's too
Agidingbi
Yes.
to Oriental Hotel.
I feel like it's too risky. Like, my mom would just be screaming, hey, Ofekuni, oh. Like, anything Okada, she doesn't like it.
Yeah.
I put the R in risky. That's why I'm BellaRose.
Wow, great.
Wow.
But I have actually gone that distance before, and quite honestly, I don't think it would have been possible right now in this dispensation if not for bike hailing applications, right? And that's why it's topical today, and that's what we're talking about on Disqus, because there are certain policies that the Lagos state government in particular, right, has put in place that in one way or the other is inadvertently affecting bike hailing applications. And it is a major issue because there are gray areas within which they are operating. And I had seen a very interesting article on TechCabal on Twitter the other day. I spent a lot of time on Twitter, by the way. And it kind of delved into this issue, regulation, some of these government policies, how it would affect bike hailing applications, or maybe altogether kill them, and how in one way or the other it's also discouraging foreign direct investments.
So, I have a background in urban and regional planning, so we did a lot of transportation plans and all of that. And I think the major problem is, I think Lagos State government needs to get with the times. When they were planning for Lagos State, they call it a mega city. That's what, in the last couple of years, they've talked about mega city and everything. In their mind's eye, a mega city is not supposed to have motorcycles operating it. So they never planned for it in the past, they're not planning for it in the future. So they just feel bikes in Lagos State will be extinct eventually. But the thing is, they probably are comparing themselves, maybe London or something, they have very efficient transport system. You don't see motorcycles there, so why should we have
operative word, efficient transport system? We don't have that.
Exactly. So, and because we don't have alternative means of transportation in Lagos, the population is over 20 million. Motorcycles, in my opinion, are here to stay.
Absolutely.
Until we can fix it.
I think so too.
Another thing also is that, the Lagos State government had problem with the motorcycles and all. With the bike hailing services, they still see them as that. But I think Lagos State government just needs to get with the times, basically, and incorporate it into their plans. It's not an answer.
I think that to a very large extent, we probably have talked about this before on the show. There is something weird about government making policies. They sit up there and make those policies. And it's not about even getting with the times now. It's about literally looking at what is on ground. So like if they say, feeling exactly how these things can be executed. When you look at some of the policies that have been put out, so there is the issue of bikes that are only for delivery purposes, right? 200cc and up are the only ones that can ply the highways. So does that mean if my bike is commercial and it's 200cc and up, I cannot carry a passenger, I can't be commercial? Because, I mean, it's a great area. It's like, okay, so if you're going to say only bikes that deliver stuff can ply some of these routes, what happens to bikes who are of the same capacity? What makes it bad for them, to carry on with that? And when you also look at issues of, like you have mentioned, transportation, right? In the event that, some kinds of buses or, you know, cars cannot get to some areas. What happens to people who live in those areas? How are they able to navigate their way to these places, whether in or out? I was talking about how my longest trip has been from mainland to the island, right? There are people who might have to do that every single day, right? And are willing to put on a helmet, for instance, are willing to wear a knee brace or whatever, just because they probably have to do that. So is the policy just because we want to phase out bikes for the fun of it, or are we looking at being very inclusive with this policy and making it, you know, help the average Lagosian and even help the person who chooses to be an Okada rider, for instance? And I think that's a very large extent. There is also a weird dichotomy between ride-hailing applications and your local Okada.
Yes.
And they need to address that. Yes. So far, according to the report that I saw on TechCabal as well, you know, there were talks around how your average, you know, Okada guy might be having some issues with the NURTW. So far, there haven't been any reported cases of NURTW guys, having any issues with these ride-hailing application guys. But I think it's only a matter of time. I really think it's a matter of time, because by the time perhaps more and more people are choosing to go for these bikes, these technologically driven, bikes, then there might be an issue, because that happened in the case of taxis. And it is very possible that the same thing can happen even for bikes. So the government needs to make sure that they don't make these policies focusing on just one aspect, because these policies are affecting majorly the local, bike guys. But even the ride-hailing applications also kind of fall into that category, because they are bikes anyway, right? So whether or not they are operating locally or offline, right, as whichever we want to put it, it affects them anyway.
I think this whole thing is just very weird, because take, for instance, Uber now. Uber has this Uber border in other East African countries. We're not in East Africa, but yeah, in East African countries. And they are scared, in quotes, of coming to Nigeria because of these regulations and all of that. I know that if Uber is coming to Nigeria, the first place they're going to go to is Lagos. And we already have a lot of traffic rules and bike rules that make them be like, oh, is this thing going to be sustainable in the long run? So the whole thing is just messed up, basically.
Yeah, I think we just need to address the issue, because in my very Lagosian and Nigerian mind, I would think that the Okada riders know that they have a very strong association, probably have complained to the state government about how maybe these bike hailing services are taking their customers and their jobs and stuff like that. So that's why they are.
There was also something that I saw also on Twitter about how the government, for, I think, licensing, they are charging almost an arm and a leg for that. And that's also discouraging a lot of people. So on the long run, I'm trying so hard to find the post now, but I can't find it. But what I understood by that post was, on the long run, if they are going to make it difficult for people to get licenses, particularly for your ride-hailing applications, because they have to have some kind of agreement with the government. They are working here anyway, right? Yes. If they're going to make that difficult for them, it now stifles innovation even in that area. So if you're going to make Lagos a mega city, going back to your point and what you started with, if you're going to make Lagos a mega city and you're choosing not to encourage these kinds of innovations and these disruptions, I'm not sure how much of a mega city, it's like how I don't know, it's a very weird movement, very weird motion that we are on. So anyway, yeah, that's about it. But would like to know what your thoughts are, if you've had any very interesting bike issues or experiences.